Yeah.
But I also think the media, they don't give up on this Conte when you're going to sign a contract thing.
Yeah.
But he keeps talking about the future, doesn't he? He keeps talking about the long term, that he needs 2 or 3 more windows.
Patience
So
and all
yeah,
that kind of stuff.
he's talking about patience, isn't he? So maybe we should believe him more than we do the media, who keep asking about his contract, which is more of a personal matter, and actually the club can extend it by another 12 months if they want to. So yeah. I'm not so sure, but all these kind of unsettling things all add up, don't they? And it doesn't help.
They do, and I think that's, of course, and the fans will get, which is, I have to understand, the fans will get kind of edgy and nervous about it, thinking, as we're being told, he wants to go to a different club. He wants to win things, and therefore he wants it immediately. And he does, he talks that he's not used to this. So that kind of feeds into our kind of paranoia.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're hyper aware of it, aren't we? I mean, and every year that goes past without a trophy of any variety, it just heightens that pressure, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah.
I mean, I guess the thing that we have to remind ourselves, or the way I try and rationalise it by saying, is looking at it and thinking, Conte is in a position where he is at a club that he gets to call all the big shots. He is the big guy at the club, and that Levy has courted him and wanted, brought him in, and that ultimately, although there were people in between them, Conte's replaced Mourinho here. From a personal,
I think he has. Yeah,
he will take a really, really, really big incentive on wanting to do what Mourinho couldn't do at Tottenham. And also, he's on what, 12 million quid a year, and that's a fucking lot of money, and it's a job for him.
Talk of that, he might go up to 17 million a year to persuade him to sign a new contract.
Yeah.
And even if you went, let's say he went to Barcelona, or if he went to Juventus, has been touted, they've got no money.
No. Yeah, they're all broke.
Yeah. And I mean, just on the players thing and on the rebuilding, I noticed in the pre-match, or the reading notes from the pre-match conference, that he'd said, about the upcoming transfer window, and somebody had asked him, have you got targets, or do you think you need to sign more established players or more big name players? And he said, the club do, or was it something like, are you making a statement to the club or something like that? And he said, the club do not need me to tell them that they need to more quality players. This is already happening. This is already. And so they are obviously having these, and of course you would expect them to be. My concern was that always after a World Cup, anybody that's any good, their price is going to be inflated.
He also said the other day, actually, that it after a year now, he's got a good measure of not the club overall, but also the playing staff and what's needed. And he says that he feels very confident about what's needed. So that I'm sure it has been communicated upwards. You wonder how much of that's been communicated to players. But if we circle round actually on that issue, I'm going to ask you a pretty loaded question here about who do you think then needs replacing, and who do you think really at the moment still not yet convincing. So if you, Richard, in terms of players, who do you think we really do have to upgrade upon, and who aren't you yet convinced by?
It's a tricky thing, because a couple of the big signings have yet to really establish themselves in any meaningful way, have they? Richarlison's picked up an injury at exactly the wrong time, because right now would be when he would be being expected to establish himself in that side. There are concerns about him being able to play on the right, allowing Sonny to retain his place. But at the moment, I think with Son's form as it is, it's a real shame, because actually I think Son probably does need to not be in the first 11. And that's a bit of an issue. I say the most obvious thing that we need to do is we need to upgrade on Emerson Royale's position. I think it would be a perfectly good, right back if he were playing in a back four. I think he would be great as a really, really well-established back four, right back, you know, because he's great defensively. But obviously having him in that position where he's expected to play that dynamic right wing-back role, it just exposes the weaknesses in his game. And I hope that Matt Doherty can come back to some sort of form quite quickly after he's returned to the side. Because at the end of last year, he'd really transformed himself as a player, and that was quite an optimistic thing. I think the big frustrations about making the answer to this question is, if we had have won last night, there is an opportunity we might have started to see players like Jed Spence getting game time because there would be no problem. And
that's true.
At the moment, we're going to have to persevere with these players that we know are functional but not really good enough for the job, because it's a bigger gamble to blood new talent in these games.
And exhausted.
Yeah. So, you know, I mean, it's one of those, I will always sort of caution patience because that's my character. But, you know, I would say that I was expecting to see more of Bissouma than I've seen so far. I've seen him in but not particularly anything impressive. I don't know whether or not we can judge Jed Spence at all until the end of the season because of his age, you know. But we definitely have to move Royale on, and whether or not that's a case of playing Doherty until Spence is fit enough to take the starting place or good enough, I don't know. Sessegnon only in flashes. Perisic really has gone off the boil after a new start. The thing just seems really fucking disjointed.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
It does.
And I've got to say, you know, we have got to start thinking about a long-term replacement for Hugo Lloris now.
I was going to say that, I mean, we've got to really start thinking about that soon, because as much as he played so well against United and he kept us in the game, as it were, he's also keeping us out of other games. So we've got to do something about it. And, you know, Hugo is a bit of an enigma at Spurs, I feel, because he's the captain, he's ever present, been there for like a decade. And you know, could we do better? We always rely on his, you know, his cat-like skills to save us in games. But I mean, his kicking is shocking, isn't it?
Yeah.
And always has been. He's been there 10 years and still hasn't learned how to kick a ball properly. I mean,
and I mean, last night again, he had one of those sort of brain farts towards the end of the game, outside his 18-yard box.
I know.
You know, they had 2 or 3 players in the box, I think, waiting for.
And we had 2 defenders coming back, so he didn't need to do that.
He didn't need to do that, and yet, you know, that would have been catastrophic if they'd have scored. Fucking hell, you know, we'd be in now.
No, you're right.
Yeah, you're right.
I mean, he's in his the first goal, I think he should have saved as well. But like we said last pod, I love him. You know, but he is time for a replacement. I think he's he had perhaps last year was his swan song. He was superb last year, which is probably why, you know, we've not rushed to replace him. But this year, it really feels that it's very, very obvious now that there's too many mistakes, too many rash decisions, too many things he's not quite getting right. And I don't want, like we said last pod, to for his career to finish on a sour note. He doesn't deserve
exactly.
He's been such a brilliant servant to this club. So really, you know, if we don't act, we're setting him up for that kind of ignominious kind of exit from our club, and that's not fair. And I agree also, like with Emerson, you know, the guy's done everything. He's hyperbaric chambers, he's worked his socks off, he's lovely little videos that he posts up, but he's not of the required quality. He's of the required mindset. Right. He puts everything into it, but he's not of the required quality. And we need to be ruthless. If we are going to do what we're led to believe that Daniel Levy wants, is to project us in to that kind of elite level club, where in a few years' time we are knocking heads with the Real Madrids of this world. You know, whatever you feel, whether that's just, you know, hubris, I don't know, bravado, but I think that probably is the plan. But we really need upgrades in those key positions. Mora, I mean, what the hell is Mora now? He needs getting rid of, and that player, that particular player, you could have a Kulusevski alternative, because when he's not in it, we look unbalanced.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean the link between midfield and the forward line is Kulusevski, isn't he?
Yeah.
And or it's Kane, but everybody's wise to Kane coming deep and they're on him as soon as he gets the ball these days. So that's not working.
So get your hands in your pockets, then, Mr. Levy. I think we are talking about that. We've been rumored that we might spend another couple of 100 million this January, which would go some way, I suppose, towards if Conte signs a new contract and then we see we're in for, I don't know, Bastoni or a creative midfielder that we're yearning for. I think that'll settle things down quite quickly and also give us some really, really great options. I don't think we're far away. I think we're 2 or 3 players from being a very, very good team.
Probably, yeah.
I mean, I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is that our first 11 is pretty good, but we're not seeing our first 11 at the moment, and that's why.
Yeah, I think everybody's a bit under a cloud, maybe a bit too knackered because they're playing so much. It's like anything, isn't it? In any walk of life, if you're having a bit of a downer, it's very hard to get out of that downer, isn't it? So maybe we just need some injections of some quality players to pick everybody up.
How many games have we got left to the World Cup? I think
we've got 5, isn't it? I think.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one way to get out of that downer, though, which really isn't about confidence, is starting fast. And I just think we just take, as we said earlier in the pod, and we've done so for years. How can we not start with greater intensity? Why aren't we being drilled and starting like Liverpool have done over the years? They that rock and roll football. They start out and try and win the game in the first half. We look like we're trying to win it in the last 20 minutes.
Yeah, which is always dangerous.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's one of those, isn't it? That, I mean, strangely enough, it was something that we did used to get a little bit of with Mourinho, wasn't it? That it was always like we tried to get the first goal and then we would shut up shop and then ultimately.
So, that was his complete strategy, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? And it's like the flip side of it now is that we conserve energy to finish strong. But I mean, it's one of those strange things that, like you say, Lee, that it's happened for a long time. 2 of the things that people say about swashbuckling football being Spurs' DNA, but actually the 2 things that I could see that are actually Spurs' DNA for the last 15 years, if not longer, are that we always start slowly and that we be off the ball in a press.
Yeah.
2 years where we didn't do those 2 things. Well, fucking hell, we nearly won the league in both of those years.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? It's all the fans can see it, but it doesn't seem to be happening on the pitch. It's just.
I think I have the
so
answer.
Bizarre.
I think we need a bunch of inhalers. If we can send them if we can get everyone diagnosed as asthmatic, maybe we've got a chance.
Interesting.
Anyway, I think we'll round it up
this
there,
season,
shall we?
are we?
No.
Let's wrap it up.
We did the predictions in the last pod, so we'll leave it as that, I think, shall we?
Oh, you did the predictions for Bournemouth, did you?
Yeah.
You did,
unless you want to change your mind. Anyone want to change their mind?
I think it's going to be an ugly win at Bournemouth. I mean, what are your thoughts, Andy?
I think they're a side that struggle to score goals, but they'll probably just sit deep and make it really, like you say, really ugly. Yeah, it's going to be a tough game.
Well, I mean, the important question, Lee, I can't remember myself. Maybe you can remember what it was that Simon predicted for the Bournemouth game, because he was unnervingly accurate about last night.
Yeah.
Was he? Okay.
I think he said 2-0. I think he said 2-0.
Oh, well, there you are. Then we'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well done, Simon.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you, boys. We've been the VARside Spurs podcast and Coys.
Come on, you Spurs.